All right, and here we are in one you could enjoy version of RVE. So OpenGL, kind of same basic environment beyond the change from using Black's compiled RVE to Saab stories. So that is, I'll post a link to his GitHub where I acquired that. His instructions are a little unclear, in my opinion, but I want crisp, perfect kind of description so that anybody reading them will be able to get through the same results every time. So I'm using his version of RVE Saab stories, and the one thing I noticed, so the ground looked a bit different, for good or bad. I think it looks a bit better, but personal opinion. And the clouds, I did notice you've got this repeating pattern. I think maybe the detail level is too high or low or some things. You get this repeated pattern where the clouds appear to be in lines. And sometimes I think that looks good and sometimes it doesn't, in my opinion. So right now I think it looks okay, but it's still worth noting. Beyond that, it looks like I've about 150 to 200 megabytes less memory. So let's see what it looks like from the air. I'm using my scatterer settings, not his, because he explicitly says on his GitHub that you should use DirectX 11. So I think he optimized some of his settings for DirectX 11. My guess was that those were just scatterer settings, because I think everybody's I've talked to individually has noticed issues with scatter. Maybe that's why the clouds look that way. So it looks like he has volumetric clouds on, which is nice. And yeah, I recall that makes sense. Generally when I see that issue, it's when volumetric clouds are on. So it's lining up these cohorts of little poofs of cloud that even if they overlap each other or don't or whatnot, you can still tell that they're lined up in rows. So I wonder if maybe there's a random, kind of random number generator to throw on that, so they're not just organized in lines like a super repeating pattern like that. But it's it's worth noting why it looks that way. And yeah, it doesn't bother me too much. It's just worth noting. So he's got volumetric clouds on. Ooh, and the sun is hiding behind that. I don't recall that happening in the previous one. Maybe that's what he didn't like. So right at sunrise from certain altitudes, the sun looks like it's hiding. So is it hiding behind post-processing? Yes, indeed. So it's hiding behind post-processing. So I set up my horizon. Well, I set up some of these values such that the rim exposure values here and are as they are. Sky, let's see, 25. Nope, that didn't change it. Okay, so yeah, it's hiding behind a post processing layer. So that's certainly worth noting. Maybe that's why he doesn't suggest it, but I can totally ignore that. I'm very rarely staring into the sun, and that might only happen when you're near sunrise or sunset from the ground. I suppose I'll have to drop the solids. I suppose I'll have to wait, just kind of time warp through a cycle. So anyway, let's look back at those clouds. So these ones I noticed do look a bit blocky and pixely, and I think that's the one thing that I'd want to change from Saab's configurations. A number of these clouds, I can very clearly see that they're not looking kind of wispy and dark like I was kind of noting and I disliked. However, notice how I'm beyond 80 kilometers and the clouds haven't disappeared. So, I mean, strengths and weaknesses, and then my goal of doing this is I can observe and note the differences, strengths and weaknesses between these different versions, and hopefully either achieve my own composite that's superior in my opinion, or other people can use the data themselves. Or even if just one looks good enough to you and you're like, I'll be just fine with that, then you can absolutely do that. And so it looked a bit weird right before I passed 130 kilometers at the horizon. That might have been, let me see. No, I don't have that set. Sometimes this experimental view direction offset kind of moves some of the effects up or down from the horizon. So that's not what was causing it, but again, it's in the direction I don't look right into the sun during launch because I want the maximum light that the sun gives me by looking this way. So it looks, all in all, looked really good. I liked that the clouds did not disappear at 80 kilometers, so that might be something I could figure out from the differences between the the Black's configs and the Saab story configs. Let's see, are we high enough? Sure, I'll throw out my solar panels, and I'll try to achieve orbit even if I have to cheat it with HyperEdit, because I want to make sure the sun doesn't do anything weird with the horizon just from space, because sunset and sunrise are one of the things that look the nicest. or at least in the past. Obviously, there's been a ton of changes to Eve and RVE and Scatterer, and maybe it doesn't quite give the same horizon, sunrise, sunset effect that I remember. All right, so just point it forward. So the cloud blending looks about the same, I think, near the Terminator, so I like that. Oh, you kind of get this, I think that's just me, that's just my settings. So if you tilt the camera when near the Terminator, you see that, where it kind of changes color like that. But I can live with it, it's just kind of just means if I was taking screenshots of this, I would kind of be selective in my angles, so you didn't see that. But obviously it's also something you notice in comparison as you move, whereas if you saw a screenshot like that, you might not notice that that's not at all the same as it looks from a slightly different angle. Oh, stage burnout, okay, and oh, okay. Oh boy. Let's try to do this manually at not super speed. So I'm guessing I'm gonna have to use HyperEdit to get this thing into orbit, but you know, whatever, it's just testing anyway. Actually, I may as well just do that now. Save myself the time, because I just really want just the data anyway. Okay, velocity, 350, yeah, no, should be fine. Turn off my engines, apply, and it changed, so it thinks I'm in orbit, which, good. Quite a high orbit. Good for me. Good for you, HyperEdit. See, that horizon's got a nice bit of glow. So some versions I've seen the sun casting off of the water doesn't look quite right. So this looks good. I believe I'm seeing the cloud shade, the shadows from the cloud on the water, which is a good effect to look for. It's not something I feel I need, but I was impressed when I saw it in blacks, and it's nice to see in here as well. So that the cloud, it looks like this texture is either being spread more widely, because I really see the pixeled clouds here. So maybe that's where, you know, maybe that's what you're trading off to save 200 or 250 megabytes of RAM. But I would like, if I were to use these if I had to use the lower resolution cloud texture, I would maybe make them scale, make them kind of tile more over the earth or something, so that I didn't see the individual pixels the clouds are made up of out here. And certain versions, see, this one looks a little less bad, but in terms of pixeliness, but I did notice somewhere it was kind of composite. But maybe, okay, actually let me look. Alt 0 now that I know here. So he only has one layer of clouds. So it must have been in one of the other ones. I noticed that one was more blocky and pixely than the other. And I think there's a line in the clouds here near the ground. I think that is where a cloud is being, you know, the texture is being mapped or wrapped around or something. So all in all, it also looks very good. Just the clouds are more pixely. See, I feel like in this area it looked a little less pixely, but that just might be because that's the way it is. Ooh, and there's a real bad line. That's probably caused by OpenGL. That is or no, maybe that must be the edge of a cloud texture. No, OpenGL, I think, because from space I don't see that line at all. Oh, what happened? Yeah, you know, rendering glitches, they occur. You just take your screenshots at other times, right? But, you know, they really don't bother me because this looks just amazing, in my opinion. It may be a little bit red, but I don't know, that's the aesthetic that I currently like, so I might change it in a week or something, personally. But, so everything looks nice, so now I just really want to see what the sun does at the horizon. I don't know if any of that is controlled by what which sun flare you're using. But I usually do use a different sun flare, but just for these tests I'll be using just the basic one. So kind of changes the sun. I can now think of the what is it, the NR something, the high definition video they have on the ISS. That's what I'm thinking here when I see that really nice little jet of sunlight at the edge. So where the sun would disappear, that was definitely looks like it was just a surface effect, and I can live with that. And then the sun disappears. So I remember Scatter used to be a bit more aggressive in how it would affect the kind of the atmosphere's edge at sunrise and sunset, and I definitely liked that because you got more blending of colors as the sun rose and set. Now obviously, you're not going to notice that as much at sunrise, but here, see, it kind of just pops over the edge, and then this color band looks about the same, to me for the most part, as you move away from the sun. Whereas in a previous version, it changed. You know, there's kind of more of a gradual phase of colors as the sun reached the horizon. So, you know, that might be caused by something else. I just wanted to note it as well. But all in all, I think it looks really good. Just the cloud. Biggest advantage is the clouds don't disappear at 80 kilometers. Biggest weakness is the clouds are a bit pixely. So I'm just going to clip these together all live. So revert to launch. So that was my daytime launch. Well, actually, maybe I won't, because I do want to be able to just look at these separately myself, just compare apples to apples, so day and sunset. So thanks for watching. I'm just going to record, jump to midday, and then record another video in a moment.